Good morning and welcome live to you from Johannesburg. This is eNCA. I'm Jan Joseph. Gareth Edwards is out in the field this morning. Well, let's go to that story. Judge Thokozile Masipa ruling a short while ago that live tweeting and blogging during pathologist Gert Simon's testimony will be allowed in the Oscar Pistorius murder trial. Broadcast media are also allowed to wrap the day's evidence, provided it's approved by both the defence and the prosecution. Gareth Edwards is outside the North Gauteng High Court for us with the latest. Gareth, quite a turnaround that the judge has made in the last 24 hours.
That's right, Joanne. It's been quite a roller coaster, really, for the media. Yesterday, we were told that absolutely no part of the testimony being given by Professor Simon is going to end up being live broadcast, whether that is audio, television, or even live tweeting. And you're quite right. This then created a lot of confusion regarding live blogging, for example. Is that allowed inside court? But we now know from the ruling earlier this morning, I'm sure after having consulted with her court advisors, she has decided to allow the live tweeting element and live blogging to continue. However, worth noting that no live audio and no live TV broadcast is allowed. You mentioned a moment ago about how that can be handled later in the day with the pre-packaged reports on that issue. However, we still don't know exactly what happened inside court once it all began. So we have Annika Larson with us, who's run out of the court again, very quickly across the road to us to give an update. Annika, morning again. What happened?
Well, after 18 minutes of cross-examination from Barry Roux to Professor Simon, Barry Roux requested half an hour to please read the academic literature regarding autopsies. Now, what's happened is they're going to be making a lot of fuss about the fact that Professor Simon has said that he believes River Steenkamp last ate at about 1 a.m., which was, just wait for these vehicles to go past. He's going to make a lot of the fact that River Steenkamp ate at 1 a.m. Now, Oscar Pistorius said in his bail application that they went to bed at 10 p.m. So he's really said that, it's with his 30 years experience, he's done about 15,000 autopsies. Couple that with a synthesis of different academic articles, literature on how the food digests in the gut. That's how he came to that finding of River Steenkamp eating probably at 1 a.m. Barry Roux, that hurts the defence's case because it's in contrast to Oscar Pistorius's bail testimony, so they're going to be they're going to be saying a lot about that. Barry Roux wants to read that academic literature and he needs half an hour to do that.
And as far as Oscar Pistorius himself, I think particularly after yesterday and his loss of composure, even being sick inside the court itself, a lot of people are going to see what he looked like this morning. You and I saw him arrive here at the court seeming quite confident the way he walked, but always around a group of people as he quickly hustles off into the courtroom. What did he look like to you when he was finally back in the dock?
You're right, walking into court he has that physical and psychological support of his cousins who surround him, but in court I thought he looked bleak. I mean, his complexion is grey. To me he looked quite defeated and very tired, but certainly not as tearful yet, and certainly more composed than he was yesterday.
Let's just talk a little bit about not this particular pathologist. You and I were talking about this earlier, that the defence will also have their own pathological experts. I understand there's going to be two of them in this case.
Right, we know that one is Reggie Perumal, who is based in Durban, and he's a private forensic pathologist. It's not uncommon for an accused or the family of a victim to have their own private pathologist witness an autopsy, just in case there's an incompetence concern, or if there's a concern about tampering with the body. But it usually happens when an accused has got the money to spend on that private pathologist, because it's not something that it costs a lot of money, basically.
It's quite a costly exercise. I imagine one is very expensive, two is going to be even more so. If we could just touch for us again on this issue of how you cross-examine an expert witness like this. So we spoke about Professor Simon very briefly earlier this morning. It must be very difficult to try and get into his head and try and confuse a man and make him doubt himself.
Well, you're crossing swords with a man who, as I said, has got 30 years experience and spends a lot of time in the witness box. You can see from his composure that he's done this many times before. He wasn't even particularly put off in his testimony yesterday by the soundtrack of Oscar Pistorius constantly retching into the bucket. So he's a professional. Rue will know that he's dealing with a professional and he's not going to be easily shaken. So I suppose persistence, and he'll have to, rather than ruffle the expert witness, he'll probably have to do a better job of confusing the court.
I can't help but imagine, having just seen some of the live tweets that we've gotten from Karen Morn, who is, by the way, allowed to tweet from inside the court now, this issue of Reeva Steenkamp's urine being murky, and this is a detailed autopsy. It's a pathologist report. These details will be in there, eNCA. That does tend to contradict the statement by Oscar Pistorius that she had gone to the bathroom earlier, the bladder being full, for example, in this case. What do you make of something like that? Does it contradict the statement?
Look, I mean, she had about a teaspoonful of urine in her bladder. I don't know whether she'd had a sip of water or something like that next to her bedside. Those details haven't yet emerged from court, and I suppose that as Oscar Pistorius was the only witness, much of that sequence of events is really going to rely on his testimony and his cross-examination.
Whenever that does take place, indeed. Senior reporter eNCA Larson stepping out of court for what is an unplanned half-an-hour adjournment. We understand Barry Rue wanting to go through medical articles that the pathologist, Professor Simon, was referring to in court. It is about half an hour was the adjournment. It's about 20 minutes, I'm sure, till the proceedings get underway again. Once it does get underway, Joanne, viewers will be able to see the live tweeting from Karen Morn inside the courtroom. Judge Masipa allowing that before proceedings formally got underway. This morning she was dealing with that issue, but live tweeting allowed again once court resumes in about 20 minutes from now.
You deserve to know more.
eNCA.com